Hey there everyone, Esteban here. What you're about to watch is a new documentary from producer and collaborator Phil Nolan on the story of TMNT Cross Justice League Turbo and the incredible team behind its creation. Please be sure to give Phil a warm welcome to the channel in the comments below, and while you're down there, give the video a like if you're digging it. Okay Phil, take it away.
TMNT Cross Justice League Turbo is what happens when you give fighting game players the means of production. You could call this a fan-made tribute game, sure, but the word fan would be glossing over a lot of expertise and special skills that take this from a novelty to an accomplishment that hooks just about any retro game enthusiast brazen enough to download it. Make no mistake, this is a whole-ass fighting game, made by fighting game experts and fueled by personal passion. I promise you that the story of this game and this team is beyond unique. A motley crew of specialists, pooling their talents, enticing gaming legends out of retirement, risking the ire of massive intellectual properties, and giving away their precious personal time and money in heaps to put something special together for their tight-knit community to unite behind.
Like now both.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That was madness.
A lot of what caused this all to happen is serendipity.
This game is impossible to explain to normal people. It's just so many things that happen.
Initially, in the Discord, we were there to work on TMNT Tournament Fighters Championship Edition. I have spent the past 4 years trying to get the word out about SNES and 16-bit fighting games.
Initially, I made the characters from Tournament Fighters as a gift to a friend of mine who basically taught me how to play fighting games. I made approximately 126 characters for Mugen, from games as far as Marvel vs. Capcom 2, anime-style games that I kind of came up with, like my own moveset with. In the Mugen community, I was known for making things as accurate as possible, just so I could say, yes, Mugen is a laughingstock, and it should be. But if you really try hard enough, you can make things feel good and proper.
You know, it goes with the sort of culture that we're bringing back. You know, like a couple of years ago was a lot of 80s stuff, and now like 90s stuff is, you know, Scream is back. I can't think of anything more 90s, you know?
And so we had started, you know, just spitballing with the idea of what if we took these characters and made them fight Sailor Moon? Or maybe we made them fight Ranma 1/2. First, it was just kind of a lark. We were all sitting there in the chat. We said, hey, you know, this is really cool. You're starting to make a game.
As long as fighting games still have an outlet to tap into that nostalgia, resurrecting these old games that for, you know, whatever reason can't be re-released officially by companies nowadays, it strikes a chord with like most people.
And I wanted to make sure I bridged the gap for those players of the game to feel comfortable here. So I didn't change a lot of things about the base roster, because I can tell you directly how it works 100%, because I've basically decompiled the game at that point to know it.
Basically, my goal is to make this the kind of game that I wish had existed back in 1994. Games like TMNT Tournament Fighters and Justice League Task Force have such a rich history.
It started off as a somewhat sequel to Tournament Fighters. It has a lot of the elements from that original game for the Super Nintendo. It's a fighting game for fans old and new. Like, Supers are one button, but you know, regular commands are stuff that us old heads would be able to appreciate. There's a lot of emphasis on neutral, and there's lots of depth to be discovered with your characters, and I give you a ton of things to find that out in training mode to boot.
The game is a shockingly functional and complementary union between two pretty disparate SNES games: the heralded and preserved TMNT Tournament Fighters and Justice League Task Force, a game that does technically exist for whatever that's worth.
There's a lot of hard-working devs from the mid-90s who really went out of their way to make these high-quality changes to Street Fighter II's formula using their own unique touch. Tournament Fighters did it better than just about any other SNES fighting game.
TMNT Tournament Fighters is especially one of them. As far as I remember, wasn't that big of a success for Konami. Like, they put money into it, but you know, it wasn't that big of a deal for them, or they would have continued it. So TMNT Tournament Fighters and Justice League Task Force, very separately, I enjoyed for different reasons, obviously.
Tournament Fighters caught on during 2017 and later because it was getting featured at Combo Breaker. Of course, you have Nerd Josh who played it. You have Justin Wong who played it. It was getting some limelight for this game that people always like had fond memories of, and suddenly it had a community. So I feel like what better time And what better game to represent than right now in Tournament Fighters?
You know, Ninja Turtles, amazingly popular franchise. I mean, huge series.
It started off as just a love letter. What if somebody gave this a shot and they were serious about maintaining the integrity of what makes this game special to you guys?
Task Force is not a great game by any measure, but it was interesting at the time. There was something about it. Plus, if you didn't have a PlayStation or go to the arcades, it was the only superhero fighting game you could easily get your hands on because there wasn't that many.
Having gone back, I could see the work that Kame has done, and they have really turned that game into a much more enjoyable experience.
No, oh my god.
Is this already boiled down to this?
Is this I don't think that was real.
Here you have Batman. He's got a batarang, he's got a dive kick that he just leaps up and does, and he's got this grappling hook stomp, but it doesn't knock down, it's unsafe on hit, it's really slow. So I sped that up a little and made it knock down, and stuff like that, it feels very Batman-ish to do.
It certainly had its fans, and it launched Blizzard, so, you know, it's worth something.
With some characters, I didn't have to change a whole lot. Like Wonder Woman, I didn't change anything of her moveset, I just made her work as a character.
I will say right now, Ninja Turtles is eternal. There's always going to be people who are young who love Ninja Turtles, and by that same token, you'd say the same thing for the DC superheroes. DC superheroes are much older than I am, and they've been able to hold up.
I ultimately just wanted to, one, revive a game that people cared about, and two, fix a game that people want to care about. I'm going to show people that you can do all of these things if you really want to, provided you're willing to work for it. Once we had that emotion, I made a prototype of Leonardo and Batman. I immediately started overriding things that Mugen is notoriously known for doing wrong. Well, I implemented a pause menu. I implemented a move list that's in-game.
We've had this opportunity to take that inspiration and kind of really merge it all into one group project.
For example, Casey Jones' sprite set was made entirely brand new for Turbo. It was a spriter friend of mine who I've known for a long time, who was not only able to copy that entire sprite style from this old game, which he hated because he said the shading style was atrocious, but yeah, he did it in 3 weeks. So he gave me Casey Jones' entire sprite set in 3 weeks' time.
A big part of what we did with Cross Justice League Turbo was take some of the charm from the first game and amp it up to try and give it an appeal to people who may not normally have been into either a fighting game or something that's quite as quote-unquote old school.
A lot of it has to do with modern fighting games nowadays. You know, sometimes they focus on monetization, sometimes they focus on more of a live service model. Again, that 90s sort of mentality of like, this is just a simple fighting game. It's very fun, it's very pick up to play. And
I think retro fighting games are a lot easier to pick up, just as hard to master.
I agree that if you want a game to keep breathing, sometimes you have to do some things to make it more accessible and possibly change the dynamic to make returning players feel like their character's validated.
The memories they kind of preserve, like whether they be based on, you know, classic animated or, you know, superhero style franchises, whatever it may be, that still has a lot of mainstream appeal. Breaker's Revenge is somehow coming back. I never thought that would be the case. Eye of the Typhoon, a 3DO fighting game, is coming back. I really like this new era that we're kind of encroaching on because it is offering something different from the mainstream fighting games we see today.
More than anything, it's not, is this game too retro? Is this game fun?
Because at the end of the day, picking a character shouldn't be about matchups. It should be about, I like this character, I like his background, I like what he does. A lot of my design philosophy falls into that, and that's how I balanced every character in this game, was to make them play up what they're good at and kind of give them some things to work at what they're bad at. I guess my criticism for some newer games is I feel like they tend to overcorrect a problem. They'll be like, oh, well, this move you can do because it's really fast and it's like +1 is too good. And they'll make the move really slow and make it like -8, and now you never use the move again. A lot of old games suffer from the same problem. It can feel overwhelming to a new player because if you know everything, you have an extreme advantage. And if you know nothing, you're kind of screwed. And you don't get a lot of time to bridge that gap. Whereas with this game, if nothing else, Super is one button. It's not guaranteed to get you anything, but at the very least, you can stop a perfect.
The internet has made a lot of other games toxic as all hell. But for communities like the SNES Fighters Discord, an alliance of old heads and retro gamers that explore and compete in a plethora of vintage games, it's been a lifeline and a community that's as tight-knit as it is collaborative.
A lot of what makes the Super Fighting Discord work so well is that it's a lot of people who are very passionate about fighting games. I want to go play this weird game that no one's playing, and I can tell you right now, there's always going to be at least 2 or 3 people who are going to chime in and say, oh, that's awesome, I really want to play that too.
I think it was because of how receptive the community was to the idea of it.
TMNT Cross Justice League has been sort of this bedrock for a whole community to sort of rally around. Its fundamentals are solid. It was already had like a solid, structure to build off of.
A big part of what makes any good community work is a mutual respect and an understanding of what makes these games fun. Super Fighting Discord has never been about getting someone to be over the top famous. We're not begging people to look at what we're doing and acknowledge it. What we're doing is something that we believe in.
I need to make a game that would grab the attention of everybody who would play it. Try it, one game, just one game. Every single person who's ever tried it for one game was hooked.
Spirits full of them.
So when we initially started out making TMNT Cross Justice League, the fact that Injustice 2 came into existence literally as we were getting off the ground was an absolute shocker, and something that I feel definitely lended some legitimacy to the idea that the Justice League characters do deserve to have a game.
There's videos of the alpha of this game. They're not good looking at all. They look pretty bad. But they were me saying, here's what's possible. If you just want to help me out.
Welcome back to Combo Breaker Look Alive, powered by Astro Gaming. We're here for some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Cross Justice League.
It's gonna be like this. I'm just.
Oh
telling you
my
now.
goodness!
Both
So
these
that
people
was
are so explosive.
yeah.
With the new function here, with the tag mode, as you can see, like you just got some crazy stuff going on. Wall splats, like these are things that were not in the last game.
The first iteration of the game was a lot like that scene in Ocean's 11 where they recruit Bernie Mac and the little guy who can fit in all the suitcases. People who could do all sorts of amazing things were seeing the vision and jumping on board.
Within our team, there's kind of one person who knows how to do what. I can't do anything A does. A can't do anything I do. I don't know as much as Old Man Winters does about these things that we kind of need to feed off each other to figure out.
My interest in Mugen had kind of been in and out over the years. It's always been a Ninja Turtles project that somebody's done that brings me back in.
His first message is this the SNES Turtles chat room or something?
I've always enjoyed fans who want to build on stuff that already exists.
This guy is the Ninja Turtles fan that you want on your team if you're making a Ninja Turtles game. He knows everything you could possibly think of about Ninja Turtles.
When there was an opportunity to try and go out, see if we could get something, I was happy to do that as best as I could.
I always gravitate towards it. If I see any projects like that you see on YouTube or Twitter, anyone just tinkering with a game, like I pay attention because it hits all the right spots in my brain of this is a kindred spirit right here. I've just helped out when I could, just get the word out on any TMNT tournaments, and especially TMNT Cross Justice League.
Another major player who joined the team was What's Going On Here. He's gone through all these resources to try and get people together to help us out.
Especially when Nona first got involved.
For those unaware, Nona, they've done some really, really cool stuff for SNK in general.
Where A just showed up and he showed us this big promotional artwork from Nona that had all the characters. I was completely blown away by that because I was like, Nona? That Nona from SNK. Why does he care? Was the first question I had was, what did you pay him? And I was told, don't worry about it.
We were so taken aback by that.
Nona agreed to make the promotional art in the game for the opening of the game. All of the character endings in arcade mode, those are all things that he drew.
Nona getting involved brought on so many people who were interested because they had seen, oh my god, Nona worked on this game. I want to have my name in credits next to Nona. We've got so many SNK folks who did sound and graphics.
Yaman P1, Ryo Hishikawa, Tate Norio, Hiya, all of those people got involved because of Nona. So at that point, I feel like it kind of became a reunion of old friends.
It certainly elevates the material if you can get a few notable names. I don't think there's a downside of it per se. You do need to make sure your core work is up to a certain level to facilitate people getting excited about, so-and-so or this artist or that musician to contribute.
Artists, I think, respect the fact that you're willing to put in your own time, your own money, and get nothing back from it other than the love and support of a community.
Some of the things I've been able to do is commission work from artists, and some of them are professionals who worked on the TMNT brand way back when. I did get to reach out and end up being something for Renee Jacobs, which is really wild, and she was happy to do it. I never paid her anything, but I did do charity donations.
She not only was interested in reprising her character, but she started sending us roles of her doing these things. She didn't have to do that. The fact that she acknowledged us at all was insane. Pretty much anybody we've asked has either come to us first or just didn't say no. Like Jim Lawson is involved. Like he made some stuff for the vanilla version of it. That's a huge deal for TMNT fans. Mick McGinty, the original artist for the Street Fighter 2's game artwork, he did some art for this game too. It was the last piece of art that he ever did, right before he passed. And that's something that's so special to us for that reason.
As time went on and more people joined in to help us out, it gave us more motivation to want to put more and more money and effort into it. There's plenty of more content coming, so who knows what the next person that joins the team will be.
Making a game is hard enough when it's your full-time job. Oh, wait. You thought this was their full-time job, didn't you? No. No, see, they had those already. They made this whole thing in their spare time. Can you imagine?
When we first started development, I was engaged, and that following year I was married. I work full-time, always. Like I mentioned that I have a son now. That's brand new information. I was only able to work on it in my spare time and some weekends. That spare time got shorter and shorter. During my lunch breaks at work, I would end up fixing the game and working on it. I was giving like every spare second I had to this game.
I work as a writer. I spend many hours doing web design, graphic design, running tournaments. I'm in a very unique situation to be able to do that and contribute money and help out. I'm certainly not as busy as Kame. Let's just leave it at that.
It all came out of our pockets. Nobody gave us money for this. We couldn't take money for it. Casey Jones, April O'Neil, those sprites all had to be made. And they were not cheap. Even though I don't have a budget, I always paid people their first asking price.
Kamikaze is a Mugen maven, that's for sure. But he's minced no words about the limitation of Mugen as a platform to create a robust, special fighting game. Sure, Courage the Cowardly Dog can fight Hiei, but what about game modes? What about employing different engines' mechanics? What about the attention to detail of a game like Street Fighter 2? The kind of living, breathing accent pieces that are so iconic you can see them right now if you close your eyes.
Initially, when we released a vanilla version of the game, I had no intent for a sequel. I have done literally everything the engine is capable of doing. I was planning to retire after this. I was gonna do no more development of any kind. The game came out, unfortunately, right in April of 2020. As you know, things didn't go so well the rest of that year. A friend of mine was like, hey, have you heard about this Ikimigo engine? It runs everything Mugen does and it's got these new features. But when I saw what it was capable of, it sparked something in me that I thought was dead. But when I saw what this engine was capable of, I was like, guys, we should do a sequel. So starting in June of that year, I immediately started porting things over. I rewrote the input system from scratch.
The new engine was a game changer for a lot more than just the list of features. How movement feels, how responsive inputs are, the way each character is distinct and sensible.
Both of the game's input systems are based on CPS2 and Naomi hardware. That's why the game feels as good as it does, because the input system is literally Capcom.
But you could tell that like this team was really passionate about it and went about it the right way, where it's not completely reinventing either game, but it's almost making something new, and it took all the best parts of each. So that was the first thing that when I started getting into the game and just playing it, that really drew me into it.
And the game just kind of took off from there. You can define your own game modes in it. So that's where I came up with the idea of Dimension X. That's where I said we're gonna do a story mode. People have always asked me about a tag mode, and I shut down the idea initially because Mugen just couldn't do it properly. So I came up with a system of when you tag in, you can tag in 3 different ways. So I told them, enjoy tag mode. I'm not doing anything about it. It's a lawless wasteland. Have fun, I don't care. And that's become one of people's favorite modes about the game, which blows my mind because I coded it in a month.
You know, they made their own systems out of it, and systems that work and make sense. A lot of fan games or Mugens, you'll just have nonsense. It's just there for fun. But this was kind of almost built around that idea, to have tournaments, to have people being competitive. So many Mugens you'll boot up and doesn't recognize your controller, doesn't do this, doesn't do that. But like, I've never had that problem with this project, and it's a godsend just in terms of accessibility, so people can experience it.
This game was called a ROM hack so many times that at first I was bothered by it, but then I took it as like a badge of honor because they're like, there's no way this thing's on Mugen. There's no way. It feels too good. There's no character in this game that feels like another character in this game. I made a few changes with Despero, which he's entirely different. The only move that he has is the same, is his projectile and his shoulder charge. Everything else was completely made up. He was not a grappler. Cheetah kind of feels like this Felicia-like character, because that's my way of saying, Darkstalker fans, I see you. This game rewards you in a lot of ways for finding a way you want to play it and basically respecting it with your time. I made sure that there was defensive rewards and offensive rewards in every facet of work. I'm going to put April in this game. She's going to have some of her things from the Genesis Tournament Fighter game, but I'm also going to give her some new things, and she ended up being this guy-ish character with a Rekka kind of deal.
So having that combination character of Asuka from TMNT and April, like, it's chef's kiss. This is some work they're putting in. Very impressive.
I actually did a stream after Turbo came out, and it got rated by Dino Please. And I was just like hundreds of people just listening to me talk about something I didn't think was important at all. Like the deeper aspects of the game, my decisions, why I did what I did. I didn't think people cared in a lot of ways. To me, I feel like nobody really cares about how the sausage is made. They just want to enjoy the sausage.
Well-rounded than he was.
Look at this guy!
Look at it popped off with you.
We live in a world largely governed by corporate interests, and games are no different. The internet of today is a frontier of gray area where companies selectively wage copyright war on their fans and supporters, and no one is truly safe. But that won't stop this team or this game.
Our biggest concern from the very beginning was that we'd go through all this effort and do everything, and then it would get C&D'd, and we'd say, okay, yeah, we can't really do anything more, guys. Our hands are tied.
Cease and desist is always, unfortunately, something we all have to contend with when dealing with sort of fan projects or anything.
When the Turtles were introduced in Injustice 2, I was deathly afraid of that. Does this mean that WB, who is completely within their rights, can C&D this project and that would just be it?
They have to be aware of what we're doing.
Even though it's technically fair use because Mugen's free, you can't sell it, it's illegal to sell it. People have been sued before that.
We're not taking assets from Injustice 2 and making a new game or anything like that. That's not the point.
And of course, it just depends on what companies you potentially could be dealing with. Some encourage it, some don't do anything, just leave everyone alone. And
as the game got more and more noticed in that regard, people were like, are they okay with this? And I'm like, I don't know. Warner Brothers is very litigious. Viacom is extremely litigious. They both could have easily just shot this down.
Whether or not a lawyer is, sizing us up and saying, hey, I can't wait to sue these guys. I mean, it could happen.
And we decided to stoke that fire by getting an animator from Rise of the TMNT to make promotional artwork for the game. I don't know why A decided to do that, but that was poking the bear if I've ever seen it.
We're kind of flying by the seat of our pants. We've got stuff planned, we'd make things, but we could just as easily be stopped tomorrow and all that stuff would have to go away. So we embrace that methodology of development. We take every day and do as much as we can to help get the word out there and improve the quality of the game. I believe as of right now, the game has been downloaded well over 5,000 times. So that's already a huge push over what I had already expected the game to have in terms of popularity.
It's the one that I just started hearing about more and more. You know, nothing can be a perfect replication of like an old 90s game when you're making new assets, but you can certainly get pretty close to it. And TMNT Cross Justice League is like the closest thing.
I say this to this day, I would love to see more and more people get a chance to play it. We've had Justin Wong play it. There have been teases of it, but we are working on getting rollback netcode. And that's something that we have said since day one. Thanks to the pandemic, it has to happen.
It's definitely going to happen. I can't give a timetable right now.
We're very, very excited about the prospects of what we'll see in the next couple of months in terms of, tournaments. I would love to see Combo Breaker run TMNT Cross Justice League. I would love to see a group of 150 players get together to play the game someplace at a major. I want to see more major outlets take a chance on an indie game like this, one that doesn't cost a dime.
That's Super Coven, there it is. Yep, that's the tournament.
Who knows what will happen from there? Maybe those talented modders could get work somewhere else. Maybe they can all pool their resources and make something even bigger and more elaborate next time. So the possibilities are kind of endless.
I think it'd be crazy for Viacom and WB to actually do a game of this sort. Like, make it real. If they want to do it in 3D, obviously, they probably would. Even if I'm never acknowledged, even if they pretend I don't exist, even if they did it outside of even knowing about me, it would make me happy to see that.
The fact how they wanted to do something for the fans, for the community, not wanting to make profit out of it, or even try to leverage it for some other purpose, just to enjoy the art for the sake of art, and to share it with people who enjoy that, and to give people something to keep playing together. Love it. Love it. I'm glad I could be part of that.
And I think that if you take anything from our story, it's that we are not special. We are simply just people who love what we do, and we want you guys to love what you do just as much as we do. This entire process is something that, if I honestly have to boil it down, is probably the most important thing I'll ever do in the fighting game community.
Fighting games got me through some of my darkest times. Some fighting games, to me, the competitive spirit of it, the friendship that I made along the way, the people who I never would have met had I never played a fighting game.
I would not know my wife if it wasn't for fighting games. I would not have met the guy who was my best man if it weren't for fighting games. What gives me motivation is seeing you guys out there loving fighting games and learning about new fighting games.
And I think that's probably one of the more important things about the whole game, like that it can inspire others to make the same sort of dream games that you remember from the 90s.
This game became a catalyst for both me and everybody involved to really flex their muscles as hard as they ever could to say, here's what I could do if I was asked to give 103,000% for some reason. I'm glad everyone liked it, but let's be realistic. That was stressful. It was so stressful. I don't recommend anyone ever do that. Have a team. Get a dev team. If you're going to make a game, have a team. Don't just do things yourself. It's insane to do that.
If tomorrow the game were taken offline 100% forever, I don't think we'd all be embittered. I think we would just be happy to have been on the ride and there for the entire process.
Looking back, that's the one thing that I can be most proud of, is that somehow we made it.
As thanks for playing and watching, we have a special announcement from the Channel 6 team. A secret boss in the current game, Karai, will soon become a playable character in TMNT Cross Justice League Turbo. She has entirely new attacks created by many ninjas, with help from Mr. Yoshiki Akasaka, Karai's original pixel artist from the 1993 TMNT Tournament Fighters SNES game. And they won't stop there. In a future update, Mr. Akasaka will produce content for the TMNT Cross Justice League Turbo project. Stay tuned.